You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. We want to help demystify marketing to reduce risk, drive more and better opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?
All right, let's get into the B2B Marketing Mindset on this fabulous Thursday. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good.
We shouldn't be faking it. It's like 100 degrees where you are. It's 100 degrees where we are. It's a little crazy, right?
Well, let me just correct that. It's more than 100 degrees.
Wow.
I think Satan himself just left the state. He's done. Every week we go live on LinkedIn. We're helping businesses make better decisions and lower the risk. What is the risk? The risk is you're gonna blow all your money on stupid marketing stuff, or shiny object syndrome, or interns, or whatever. It's kind of risky these days. So we want to just share our knowledge to help you make better decisions. And that might not be hiring us. That's okay. But just so you don't get hosed. Today we're talking about the do's and don'ts of hiring interns. Okay, we got 3 reasons to work with interns and 3 ways to jack it all up. I think I've jacked it up maybe 12 ways at least, but you can find more of these reasons and mistakes and more episodes at b2bmarketingmindset.com and every streaming platform on the planet. So I have to say I've had a lot of interns over the years, and generally they have not worked out very well, with just a few rare exceptions. And you were the head of the internship program at University of Wisconsin, right, Whitewater, based on my notes. And I'm thinking, I looked at the notes that you said. I'm thinking, I think the problem might be me.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sometimes
that
it is.
position.
I also handled all the Disney internships for many of the universities in Wisconsin where the kids would go through the University of Wisconsin Whitewaters, and we would go down.
You mean that Disney would hire them?
Oh yeah, there's quite a college program for internship programs throughout the Disney organization. Very, very successful, very, very good. So, but anyhow, yeah. So I've done a lot of internships, and in my business, we've hired well over 20 internships, and the majority of them have been good or successful. So maybe the difference, Pete, is that our company is just naive. We don't have a clue what we're doing. Maybe you guys do, and that's the problem. We just kind of think, oh yeah, everything's going great, but maybe not.
I think there's just a ton of factors, and
You're right.
and I speak somewhat in jest, but it's so we've just have had many dozens of interns over the years, right? And some have worked actually pretty well, and others not. I think the majority not, but it could have, a lot of it is us and how we manage the interns, how we choose the interns, and so we'll talk a couple of those things, but there's actually a lot more of these reasons, and we just don't have time to cover them all today. So we kind of picked our top 3 mistakes that we've made, and everybody makes, and let's jump into it.
So we're gonna do the reasons to do it first, or the reasons or the mistakes? Okay.
No, we're gonna do the reasons to do it, because we like to start on a positive note.
You are a positive guy.
Oh, no, I'm not. Build the talent pipeline. This was my favorite one out of them, but building the talent pipeline. Tell me why that one made your list.
Well, this one, and for those of the individuals that are listening out here, this is a really, really important one. It's like, you get a chance to get an intern into your organization. You get a chance. It's kind of a recruitment strategy, or it should be a recruitment strategy. You get the chance to actually try before you buy. And so I really like that concept. And along the same lines, the interns get the chance to try before they buy. So it's really a win-win. And I think that that's really key. And one of the things that we found is 85% of companies utilize internships to hire full-time employees. So think about it. You have them in your organization. You're actually watching them, seeing them develop. Are they going to be a good fit or not for you? Are they going to be working? Are they going to have the talent set that you have? And you mentioned it just a minute ago, Pete, which I think is really important. And that is, I don't know if we did a good job hiring or whatever the case is, at least with an internship, and we'll talk more about this, but you get the chance to see them in action. And if you did a bad job of hiring somebody, the good thing about internships, in my opinion, is there's a start date and there's an end date. So
True.
So that's it is a great pipeline, and I know a lot of companies are using internships to recruit full-time employees.
I think right now it's particularly salient because I'm just hearing it everywhere. It's just so hard to find people now. It also could be because your job requirements and your salary are completely opposed. But whatever the difficulty is, this is a route, right? Especially if you want people who are, and by the way, there's different levels of interns. You know, a sophomore intern is going to be a lot better than a grad student, or different than a grad student intern.
Right.
So depending on what you need, you want to pick them right. But yeah, this is, you can have them, you can mold them in the way to do the way that you want to do it, or your company wants to do it, and whatever your method is. So
let me give you one more benefit about this too. If you do it right, it should be a lot less expensive too, because think about this. You're already investing the time to train them, to develop them, to do, to try to get them to do the right things. But that training will, it's hopefully be continuous, but the good news is you've already made that investment. And so then if you do hire them full time and it's a successful hit, it's going to be less expensive because now you've just reduced the time for them to come up to speed. They're already trained. It's really kind of a win-win situation.
well, and just to be clear, I mean, we I asked you the other day, we were talking about this topic, and I said, do you pay, interns? And we've always paid interns. And so, there's some cost, but and I think we'll cover that a little bit in the program a little bit later, but there is a cost in your time, but it's more like an investment, I think. So and so I think that's a good point. So you can build your talent pipeline, try them before you buy, and or date before you get married, so to speak. I don't know, is that politically incorrect in this day and age? I don't know. Let's go.
I'll leave that for you to give us that. But like I said too, and it's so important, it also works both ways, meaning that the intern gets a chance to see if it's for them as well too. And I think that's right. You want a win-win. You want somebody that's going to be wanting to work with you as well as you wanting to be, hiring them. So.
Absolutely, and I think one of the points we that didn't make the program, but will be on b2bmarketingmindset.com is that there's this compatibility thing, and then there's the way that you manage them and planning for that, and it's just a lot more than just bringing in a young person and turning them loose. And so
right.
And that's how you can, if you're not going to put the work in, you probably aren't going to have a good result. And I know as 20 years ago as a growing agency, it was hard to put that time in, and I think we maybe didn't do that as well as we could have. So.
But that's actually a really good point, and we'll talk about that as one of the caveats of, maybe reasons why you don't do that. But you're so right. I mean, especially and I remember those days for you and for us. I mean, you're working 18-hour days. It's it's very difficult to even have the energy to try to give to somebody new or whatever. So you're right. It's difficult. So if the listeners are thinking about hiring an intern and they don't have the time, you're going to hear us talk about that. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, and you keep me honest because you were actually there when I tell these stories. So way back in the day. So interns bring fresh perspectives. So new ideas, viewpoints, insights, new ways of doing things. It can sort of reinvigorate the team's creative thinking. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm a little torn on that one, but
yeah. I love it. I think one of the things that you just need to do is you need to be very clear with the interns, because sometimes they come in and they give a fresh perspective, and sometimes it's really, really good. But you're not gonna accept every idea, or some ideas are not going to be something that might be doable, and they might get frustrated. So but from the perspective of bringing in new ideas, new perspectives, it is really interesting. Sometimes you'll get something where you've been working on a problem or a project or whatever, and they give you a different perspective. I got to tell you one quick story. I hired an intern. This goes back about 15 years ago, but this person was extremely bright. He was a lot of fun, but his name was Matt. And I said, Matt, I'm going to take you out to a client assignment, but you really, other than introducing yourself, you're just to sit and observe, say nothing, do nothing, And so we were up at actually a major client, and they were getting into all kinds of gyrations about stuff. And there was a whole team of people, and no one could make a decision. And they were going back and forth. And Matt lost it. He said, "This is absolutely crazy. Why don't you just do this?" And he just told them what to do. And everybody kind of looked around the table and said, "Wow, that really makes sense. That's what we should do." And I was like dying because I'm thinking, oh no, he's talking. I told him not to do. But he really came up with a great idea. So sometimes those fresh perspectives are good, but timing could be another issue.
And Matt, if you're watching, put in the comments, what you thought of your internship with Bill. Wouldn't that be fun? I'd be a surprise if he was watching. But the fresh perspectives thing, it comes with youth, and sometimes, but even an intern can bring some objectivity to the business,
Right.
and I think where the trouble comes in sometimes is you still have to you have to listen, and you have to evaluate if it is a good idea or not, because again, I mean, I remember when I was young, and I thought I knew all the answers, and I
Right.
didn't, right? And so, but it is surprising sometimes. We've kind of going through that right now. We hired a young man, and it started as an internship, but very rapidly he's become our podcast producer, and the speed at which he learns has been the biggest surprise for me. It's not what I'm used to from interns. I think that comes back to kind of hiring the right people, and then
And
having that test period, I guess.
I think that that's really important. And you brought up another thing. Like we've had interns, and we have one right now and she's very, very good. But some people claim, that they're really good at something. So let's say that we're not as good at technology as we think maybe somebody fresh out of college is going to be. And so maybe they come and they do, a really good job of talking to you about that. Sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. Right now we've got somebody I think that's very good, but there's sometimes that they say that they're really good with the technology, but you need to test it, and you need to make sure that what they're doing digitally or whatever they're trying to accomplish for you is really, really true.
Well, and here's what so this comes up a lot where, hey, we're going to hire some young guy because boy, those young people know social media inside and out. Here's a test, okay? Here's a test for employers out there. Have them open business.facebook.com and give you a tour of it. Okay? If they cannot
Love
give you
that
a
idea.
tour of it, then they probably, it's just more than posting, or, if they post a lot of selfies of themselves, here I am in the break room, that's not really it. And so, but on the other hand, boy, they're familiar with some of the platforms that before TikTok became a business platform, which it actually has become that now, the young people were all over TikTok, Reddit, Discord is another one. I mean, we're old farts, and I like to, we've kept up to speed, but it's those surprises I think that they bring, and that comes under I think the perspectives angle. So I think that's a really good one. Let's go to the next one. Community-oriented organization. So this is kind of like an external, almost kind of a PR thing, right? Am I getting that right?
I think so. So, a lot of times in the PR business and the marketing business, people talk about being a good corporate citizen, and we can define that in so many ways. And, obviously in academia, they talk about it in a different way, but I think you nailed it, Pete. And that is, it's really a PR thing. It's showing, if you hire an intern, it's one, you're building a partnership with maybe a local university or somebody. So you're building relationships, you're giving back to the community, you're hiring, you're making an investment in some of the youth. So, all of that is really good, especially if somebody starts saying that they worked with Clarity or they worked with Business Direct. I mean, it's giving back. And I think that that's really an important part of I think it's an important part about being in business. You're giving back.
I do too. And both of us were teachers at the university level. You much longer than me, but I taught at University of Wisconsin. I taught at MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical
I think
College,
it is technical college.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And we discovered some really good talent there, and it was a little bit rough rough diamond kind of stuff. I mean, not always. Some of them were really advanced, and we're like, you're in, you know. And boy, when we were young, we were a small company. We were growing, trying to grow, and going all through that. It was a godsend for us. I mean, it was fantastic. But you know, we did have to close the gulag down. You know, just because it wasn't good PR. But no, we didn't really have a gulag unless
You know,
actually.
one of,
I don't know if you remember this, but the Onion was upstairs from our offices.
well, I do.
And this
I
was
do.
before they were the Onion. It was a
Yeah, I
bunch of
remember.
hippies up there smoking
Yeah,
weed.
yeah,
And,
exactly.
you know, it was wild, right? It just becomes a huge deal. But I
That's
just thought
that
that was
was their
funny.
way of doing whiteboarding. They would all smoke the weed and then get creative. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Our dogs would go up
You
and visit them. That was always fun. But go
oh,
ahead. That was
oh.
kind of an
You
aside.
know, the along the same lines with this, this is kind of a valuable lesson that when I was the intern director, I would share things with certain people. So like a new employer might come into town or somebody that wanted to build a relationship with the university, but many times they didn't know what to do. And so what they would do is they would just send us a job description or say, oh, we're hiring, and thinking that everybody was going to jump on it. And I would tell them, I'd say, look, unless you build a relationship with me, who's gonna, I know these students inside and out. They come to see me. We have seminar. We do all kinds of things. I can do a really good job of matching you with the right intern or the one that has the right quality. But if somebody's just not willing to make that commitment or just sending something, I mean, yeah, it is still a good giving back to the community, but I don't think you're leveraging it as much as you possibly could. So I guess my point is, when you are doing some of this, you really do have to think about making a commitment and getting to know who's in charge and where you can get some of those good interns. I think that that's really an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feeds into one of our mistakes. So it's page one. Uh,
Okay.
and
All right.
wait, I have notes. Let me.
That's too bad. I've been just winging it off the top of my head. So no wonder you sound so good and I don't.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm screwing it up here. No, wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
All
Uh-oh.
right.
So we're gonna
Risk.
we're gonna switch to mistakes.
I don't. Yeah, I think risk mitigation is a slide that's a mistake. So let me choose
Yeah.
another one.
But that was
Um,
last week's podcast.
Wait a minute. What's happening here? All right, there we go. I
Wow.
don't know what's going on. Developing. So our intern will edit that out probably later. Except for anybody watching live, you get to see all of it. So that's fun. Um, and if you're listening out there in podcast land, you can actually see the video mistakes at b2bmarketingmindset.com. And do me a favor, if you are catching this podcast, whether it's live or whether it's a rerun or whatever they would call it these days, share it. Share it to your timeline. If you're on LinkedIn, you just hit repost. You don't even have to do anything. Just boop, done. We really would appreciate that. We want to spread the message far and wide. Not developing clear objectives. Boy, doesn't that go for just about everything. But in this case, I think really like this. Actually, that might be the one that is the reason you fail or not. I think
Yeah.
that's a huge one. It's a
I
big
I
mistake.
really I agree with you. And you know what? You hit that right between the eyes. It's not just for interns. It's I see this with many companies when they don't do this with their employees. If you don't know what's expected of you, if you don't have some clear definitions, if you don't have a good understanding of what you're going to be doing or what's expected of you, it's going to be risky to your risk mitigation slides. So,
Right, from
so
last week, the slide from
it
last week.
works. It was
Which
a
actually,
carryover.
yeah, it works. And probably objectives was one too. I don't know. I can't even remember last week. But
It, yeah.
listen, when we pontificate about these things, I don't want to come off like, hey, we have all the answers. Honestly, we have some of the answers because we've made these mistakes, right? I mean, this is how we figured it out. I don't remember reading anything about this. It was really just doing it again and again and trying to get it right. And I think I gave up for quite a few years. And now we've sort of re-embraced that. And I want to, also say we don't turn the interns loose on client work. It's really cool that you brought Matt into the client meeting, right? But it's like, hey,
Yeah.
be quiet, sit down. And I think that's fair. But what we found is the interns that we have now really help us with our work and our internal work because our company is one of our clients, right? And it's a lot more forgiving to make a mistake, and especially if people know me, they're like, hey, that's a mistake. Of course, we know him. He makes mistakes. But it takes a little of the risk out of it. They get really good training. They see how we work, and we're at the point now. I don't know how long has Enzo been with us. 3 or 4 months, maybe, since February, and we're really at the point where now we're going to be giving him much more challenging assignments, strategic, creative type assignments. And I had to tell him, I said, don't worry. Like, the first thing you're gonna think when I give you the assignment is, I have no idea what to do, right? That's the point, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how he navigates that. And I'm saying, hey, if you got a question, ask ChatGPT. It's smarter than me. So
I got to tell you a funny story. You talked about bringing somebody to a client or doing client work. So I had an intern. This goes back about 5 years ago, but we had an intern. I took him out to one of our clients. He was a wealth manager, and we sat down and we were going through the whole process. Once again, I said, "Don't say anything. Just sit and observe." Sit and observe. So I was taking them through kind of like a strategic visioning exercise and all that. We walk out of the meeting, and the intern says to me, "I know what I want to do with the rest of my life." I'm like, "Oh, you do you?" "Yeah, I want to be a wealth manager." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. We were like 2 weeks into the internship. He was doing a marketing internship with me, and now he wants to be a wealth manager. I'm like, where do you go with that? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Where do you go?
I thought you were going to say, I know what I'm going to do, and you kind of did, but I thought you were going to say, I know what I'm going to do with my life, and it ain't marketing, Good for you, kid. Solid decision. Yeah. Solid decision.
Yeah. Do you know somebody that can give you a ride home? I'm not taking you back. Sorry.
Oh man, that's ugly, man. Failing to provide enough guidance. So this one to me, like, don't underestimate the time that it's going to take out of your day, and don't overestimate it either. Like, I think you can be too controlling, but it's you got to find that middle ground, right?
Yeah.
It's going to take some of your time. And
I mean, you might assign somebody. Yeah, it is an investment, and you might, whether that's you or whether you're assigning somebody else, somebody should be assigned to be their supervisor, even if it's just to be able to check in, make sure they're okay, or making sure that they've got somebody to go to if they've got a question or a problem. And sometimes, like you and I mean, we're out of the office a lot. And so if we're out with clients or out and about, somebody might has a question, you need somebody that's in the office also that can help them. And I think that that's going to be important. But you and I see this a lot. People just underestimate. There is time that's a commitment. And so, you can't just, if you're listening and you want to hire an intern, you can't just hire them, throw them at the wolves thinking they're going to do something without, like you said, Pete, giving them an investment and actually training them and doing some work.
Yeah, you can't just throw them to the lions, right? Yeah. That's our job. We go to the lions. We're thrown to the lions all the time. We're totally good with that. But don't do it to the intern. You're not doing them a service, because this is a two-way street. I want to make sure with anybody that, and it doesn't matter if they're an intern or employee or, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure that there's a give and take, and that it's not a quid pro quo necessarily. I think interns probably get more out of this than we do, and that's okay. But as long as we're doing the right thing, I'm constantly reevaluating. Is this the right thing? Is this the right thing for them? Are they building real world skills, right? Are they just here to save us money and do the menial stuff? Menial? Yeah. What's the?
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Like a menial task. You're right.
Menial. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Some of it's like, hey kid, how do I pronounce this simple word with 2 syllables? But even that's helpful, right? But I think that's huge.
Even for them to help you, helping you with the pronouns. So if we don't understand,
the pronoun. Yeah. What's my pronoun? Right. I'm not sure.
They can help us with that. That's great.
I got to put something into LinkedIn. I don't know what to put. Yes, I do. And
you said something else that I think is really, really important, and that is it's kind of a two-way street. And I think really you need to go into an internship with that feeling. So one, as an employer, I'm going to get something out of it, but I also have to give so the intern gets something out of it. And I think the interns need to feel the same way. It can't be just a one-way street. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. They have to give, even though it may be uneven, like you were saying, Pete, they still have to give you something. And whether that's that creativity, the new perspective, hard work, whatever,
Or just time. I mean, there are a lot of things that happen in the company that don't need a rocket scientist or somebody highly educated to do, but they still need to
Right.
get done. Great way
Yes.
for interns to start to learn kind of the ropes, right?
Yeah.
And so, last point for today is not providing feedback and evaluation. And boy, a lot of these go for employees too, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do.
But
They sure.
set up specific time frames. You mentioned that to provide feedback, maybe a couple weeks, monthly, after the summer, whatever it is. But your notes here. I'm just reading your notes. I don't know anything about this topic, but except how to make mistakes. That's what I'm good at with this. Today's
You're
students
good
need
at-
to require a lot of feedback. Tell me about that. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, think about it. Like you were saying, every employee needs feedback. So you got to have some kind of system to be able to evaluate. But I do think some of the younger generation now wants more feedback. And so I think you need to make sure that you're giving them the type of feedback. But if it's a learning experience, you want them to leave with, some extra knowledge. But I think it's critical, even if there's some bad news, even if there's some things that they're not doing right, you need to help them and tell them, because if you don't, the next employer may end up firing them or whatever. It's like, so I think it's really important to correct some behavior, make sure hopefully it works for you, but more importantly, that they learn what's expected as they go to their next position.
Right, and give that feedback honestly. I would say that most interns that we've worked with are really open to, they want to know where they're maybe not performing, that's part of this learning process. And if you get, I've also had people that were so sensitive that you could really not say anything to them. And that's, it's good to know this now before you invest a whole lot in them. So I think that feedback loop becomes very important. I actually ask them to give me feedback on how we're doing in terms of supporting them.
Oh, that's great.
And sometimes they're like, I don't know, but that's fair enough. It's okay. We still ask the question.
I think that's really a great idea, because like you said, it's a two-way street. Maybe we can learn too. It's like maybe we're not doing something, or maybe we're not as clear as we should be. So I think that's wonderful that you asked that,
Well, and isn't there saying something about, the benefits of youth are lost on the young?
Yeah.
And, we think that there's a lot of value to bring there. Now, I do have to say this as we'll do it in the final thoughts here. So let's go to our final thoughts. Hey, I want to just plug Heidi-Designs.com. Heidi Designs helps us produce this podcast. They're coming out with some website packages they're very affordable, small, medium, and large. And so head over to Heidi-Designs.com, sponsoring the website. I think in the future we are going to have some more sponsors. And of course, Bill's with Business Development Directives, and that's bddonline.com. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And of course, ClarityMarketingSupport.com. So check that out. And we always try to put comments, links in the comments. Now, here's the weird thing. LinkedIn has been giving us errors lately when we try to put comments on live videos. So Thanks, LinkedIn, for that. So we'll figure that out. But I don't know what's up with there.
If I can mention something too, like Heidi Designs has done some things for our clients and for us. She does a great job. And I think, I don't want to say she's not inexpensive, but she's affordable. And I think companies can really benefit from some of that. So I hope they'll look her up as well to do some of their nice work.
And, I might be biased, but here's the thing. If you tried the freelancers and you tried the side hustlers and the Fivers and the Upworks, and you're ready to move up just a little bit a notch, her and her team, they do everything you can think of when it comes to marketing execution. Clarity's on the strategy side, Heidi Designs on the tactical side. Check it out, see what you think of the work, and they do some great work. And again, I've been working with Heidi for 33 years. She is the co-founder of the company, and she has her own company as well. So, final thoughts. One thing that comes to mind for me is one of the biggest mistakes that I see are clients that just think that I tried to explain this to you the other day, and I don't know, it's just so hard to verbalize this, but it's like they have high expectations and high objectives, but they don't have the money, and so they think, we'll do, marketing can't be that difficult. Let's just hire an intern for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they keep their expectations the same, and they're punching downward, not based on what is it going to take in terms of resources to meet our objectives? And when I say resources, there's only two kinds, money or time. So if you don't have those two things, you're probably not going to meet your objective to begin with, but you might have to ramp that down. And I think that's the mistake that sometimes companies make, is they think they're going to get the same thing out of an intern that they're going to get from somebody who's a senior level person. That's kind of an exaggerated take on it, but that's the idea. If you're punching down, you're probably not going to get what you want out of it.
I really think that that's a valuable statement, and I think I think really to your point is that's the wrong reason for hiring an intern, is
Absolutely.
just like you. I mean, that just
To
doesn't
save
make
money.
yeah, that just doesn't make any sense. My last takeaway would be, if you are somebody that's into professional development, if you're a mentor, if you like giving back to the community, that to me is part of the internship experience, because you're helping the next generation to grow. And at the same time, hopefully it will benefit you. But like you said earlier, if it doesn't, or if it's unbalanced, it's okay, because look at what you've just done. And I think that that's really, really important.
And it brings to mind another story that we were down in Wade, southeastern Nicaragua, a few years ago doing medical aid, and we met and we stayed for a couple days. Literally the last shaman of the Rama Indian tribe. It's a little tiny tribe down there. They're all sustenance farmers, and Narciso is in his 80s at this time. It's about 2013, and we were the first, non people of color to come to that he would allow to his little, I call it a house, but it was really a platform with a thatched roof. And we asked him why through our translator, and he said, "Hey, I'm getting to the age where I'm worried I'm going to take this knowledge." He was an herbalist, right? He was their sole source of medicine, and he was extremely knowledgeable. And if I remember right, he was educated in the States, and then but he's Rama, and he went back. And, he was missing a few teeth. He would wear a transistor radio around his neck with a rope. He was just a wild guy, but he was really knowledgeable. And he realized that he was going to take that knowledge with him, and it was getting to be that time. And I'm pretty sure Narciso has now left us after all these years. But boy, a couple of days there spending with him, and this realization that he's taken the knowledge with him, that's another reason to hire and share your knowledge. It's what we do on the program. And the great thing is Georgetown University sent a whole team down there to live with Narciso for a year. And so a team of scientists go down there to learn from, toothless Indian guy who was awesome. And the other point about that is, listen, the fruit up here in America, we are getting just ripped off. The fruit is so much better in Central America. It's a tragedy for me. We worked with Dole Fresh Fruit, and we went on their organic banana farm, and I'm eating bananas. Like, I think I can live on bananas for the rest of my life. Then I come up here and I'm like, this banana tastes like 3D printed bananas. What's wrong with this? So yeah, it was amazing. So anyway, that's kind of an aside, but
no, but you made a really good point. I loved your point, and you said it, which I think needs to be repeated. In my opinion, I think that's why we do this podcast. I mean, I think it's like you said, you start off always talking about, we have 30 years experience, we don't know everything. But the bottom line is we're trying to give back to the viewers or to the listeners some of the stuff that we've known over the years, or that we've learned the hard way. And so I hope that people are finding value out of it, Pete, because that's one of the reasons why we do it.
I hope so too, and we get value out of it too. Someday we'll talk about the podcast strategy and what it's brought to our company. I can tell you this. We did this for 11 months straight, and we can attribute about $220,000 just to the podcast, okay? And that's why we decided we took a break. We renamed it because we had to, and then we are now syndicated all over the country, and we're just starting up. I want you to join us. Like, come on board. And I do hear the music in my ear, and that means it's time to say good night or good day or whatever. It's also about 1,000,000 degrees in here right now, so we got to turn the very loud AC on. And so, but it's so good to see you, and I will see you again next week. And thank you.
Thank you.
Over and out, Captain Intern.
You've been listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. Add to the conversation by commenting, sharing, and liking. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the comments. Learn more at b2bmarketingmindset.com.